is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 66 and 67. In these episodes, Luffy wakes up from a food coma. He's sort of still hungover from said food coma, and he gets very defensive of the people who put him into this food coma. And I think that we've just officially found his Achilles heel in terms of what can turn Luffy from a good guy into a villain. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Bernadette for commissioning this episode. Everybody is in the chat saying that Bernadette is a One Piece character and a badass. It's lovely. I enjoy this camaraderie between you guys. And I was complaining about not being able to join the spoiled Discord channel, and Bernadette's mocking me by saying that I can in about 1,500 episodes. How dare. So I wanted to start off just answering. Somebody left a question, and it's actually more of a statement, but they aren't in the chat, so I just wanted to mention it. Tom left a question that just, it says, "This has been really cool. I wish I could watch One Piece for the first time again." Thank you, Tom. If you're listening to this, I got your message. Appreciate you, bud. And I'm glad that you're enjoying the show. So that's fun. It never really occurred to me that you could come in and leave questions before I actually do the crowdcast. But that's actually kind of a neat thing that I should mention in case people aren't going to be able to make it, but there is something specific they wanted to mention. So yeah, guys, keep that in mind. If you are ever aware you're going to miss a live cast, but there's something you want me to address, you can find the cast as long as it's already been scheduled on Crowdcast and go and ask a question in the chat before I ever even sign in. So that's cool. Gabriella says, maybe we should do a no spoilers One Piece channel. I don't want to do no spoilers channels because it gets there then are so many channels. So, cause there's already a lot of channels. So that's kind of just what the Spoil Me plan, the planning group. I'm like, we can talk about shows in there as well. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should just do it, but it's just, there's so many things that I'm covering for Spoil Me. I always am worried of making things unwieldy. Anyway, okay. So these two episodes, I wasn't ready for this at all. And I'll tell you guys what, I don't normally, because Florian has warned me that there are often massive spoilers in the title cards for each episode. So I always avoid watching them and just look down until after they've finished speaking, and I have been safe so far. But this was the first time that I ever forgot myself. And I just happened to still be looking at the screen, and it says what is it? All out battle, Luffy versus Zorro, mysterious grand duel. And I was like, wait, what? And I'll tell you what, if there was one of these that I was going to accidentally read, I think that's probably the best one, because it is a spoiler, but it's the kind of spoiler that out of context just makes you more interested. You know what I mean? So instead of being like, oh, thanks for ruining that, I was like, they fight? What do you mean? And I just immediately zeroed in. Also, I love the fact that it's done as mysterious grand battle. There's nothing mysterious about it at all. Grand, I'll give you grand. Mysterious, though, no, not really. It's pretty straightforward. If there's a word that I would use to describe Luffy, mysterious would literally never, ever be it. He's puzzling. That's not really the same thing, you know? I often think about this meme that I have posted as like a cover photo on Facebook, which is like, I would love to cultivate a mysterious energy, but unfortunately I never shut the fuck up. And that is my energy. And I feel like that is also Luffy's energy. So this starts off with the revelation that the last episode ended with, which is that, what is her name? Vivi? That she is actually a princess. And she is actually kind of fun already. Like, I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about her becoming somebody sort of important to the plot. And it's not like we've gotten to know her that well, but I just enjoy her overall no nonsense sort of vibe. She's pretty focused. She doesn't feel like, you know, there's nothing about her yet that's like gotten on my nerves in the way that I was sort of worried a princess storyline might do. Let's see. Gabriella says, by the way, these are the 2 episodes I was hoping to wannabe to talk about the fight and its mysteriousness. I'm sorry, Gabriella. Yeah, this is trying to fit in wannabes after, like, sometimes it works out, but it can be hard. But I can understand why you would want to do this one as a wannabe. This is like, I am excited about this development too, because it's a little bit of a departure. You know, every other adventure that we've run into has been landing at an island. It turns out that there's like some bad guy who has taken up residence there somehow, whether it's like outright having captured an entire village, or in the case of Kudo? Kuno? Well, you know. But he had a whole like identity that he had created for himself. And this being like, okay, we're going to go to this island. It's going to seem like everything is great. There is Kuro. Thank you, Gabriella. Man, I really went through a list there and I still didn't get it. I really like the difference here because it's there is a continuing storyline that is spawned from their adventure on this island, but it isn't causing them to have to stay in one place. And I think that that's a smart move. You know, everything else, it's been like, okay, here's a storyline that begins and ends here. It has to be resolved here. And this is like a nice way to sort of start the Grand Line adventure, where we're going to have, obviously we have to have another big adventure that's related to landing on an island, but it's going to be something that continues our journey and carries us forward. And this episode begins with poor Cogsworth being basically like leveled. And Cogsworth, it turns out, is okay. It's unclear on this show. This is the one thing that I find a little bit, I don't want to say even frustrating. It's more like I'm unsure of myself, whether certain things that are meant to be like a signal in anime that I'm just maybe unfamiliar with are going over my head. But it's really hard to know when a character is meant to have been killed versus when they were just knocked out. Because people seem to have the same reaction whether they were knocked out or killed. They'll get this horrified expression and their eyes will fill with tears, and there'll be a long drawn out pause of the camera on their face and then the camera on the face of the person who just went down, and it's treated like they died. But then it later on turns out that they didn't. And with Cogsworth, it's a different thing because we see him talking after, right? Like, we are aware he didn't die right away, but I was sort of thinking that they were going to be fatal wounds and that he would have, by the time we get back to him, he would have died. But he winds up recovering, and then later on, I'm pretty sure he is dead. Again, we haven't seen a body. I feel safe in assuming that kind of explosion absolutely means that he is dead. That said, weirder things have happened on this show than somebody surviving an explosion. So I might be wrong about that. So the first thing that I rather enjoyed was Mr. Nine, who immediately is bowing down to Vivi and insists on defending her. I love the fact that he is so impressed with her being a princess, even though, like, he's the one wearing a crown and he's been trying to sort of, you know, play this role the whole time. And now he's confronted with actual royalty and he is like, oh, word? And of course he does this fucking thing that he keeps doing, which is when he decides to attack, he does a fucking Simone Biles routine that is not helpful in combat, my dude. And when has it been? I would love to see this moment ever working out for him, because to me, it's just making yourself extremely vulnerable for no reason. I can definitely see in close quarters doing acrobatics being intimidating. And I could even see it being mistaken for martial arts, even though that's kind of not what's happening. But he is like 30 yards away and decides that he's just going to do like round-offs and backflips the whole way. For why? Well, how is this helping you? I don't even think it's faster, guy. Like, what? But that is his trademark, evidently. I almost feel like because of the aesthetic with his weird-looking suit, that it was like meant to be a bit of a, what do you call it? Like a court jester routine. And like the crown on his head is silly on purpose in a way to sort of undermine the whole thing. But I may be just reading a little bit too much into that. So at this point, we see the first moment, and guys, give me a reminder on these two new characters' names. We've got Mr. Five, and what's the Lemon Girl's whole deal? What is her name? Five, this is the first time that we see him pick his nose. And I was genuinely like, what are we doing? This is something, guys, that I feel like there's a real line in the sand for me. I can't deal with like body humor. I have a really hard time. And this is like, at the very least, not made to look super gross. Like, unfortunately, we see him digging up there. But at the very least, there's not big, gross green boogers coming out on his fingers, you know, which I was genuinely very concerned about. But I've noticed that this is a thing in a lot of animation. And I don't know if it's like specifically like Japanese style stuff, but I notice it on like Animal Crossing as well, which is one of the few like references that I have, that bubbles of snot coming out of a character's nose is like a particular like look that they will go for, that it's meant to signify usually that somebody's a kid, I think. And I mean, I guess fair enough. Like, probably that's not totally inaccurate. I don't spend a lot of time around children. One might argue for that exact reason, because it's gross. But it is really like that fart humor. I can't. Toilet humor. I just won't. I can't do it, guys. Even, like, you guys know that a lot of my humor, I will make dick jokes. But even dick jokes, like, it has to be almost a self-effacing dick joke. Like, I'm mocking the fact that I'm immature enough that I even thought of a dick joke right now, more so than I think the dick joke itself is funny. I find it absurd that I can't help myself. That's what I find funny. So like sometimes people will come at me with jokes that they think I'm going to genuinely find funny, and it doesn't hit the way that for me that I think they want it to, because what I find funny isn't actually the dick joke itself. It's like the fact that either I am more immature than I should be considering what I'm talking about or what I'm doing or what the scene is, or the fact that it seems really obvious in context that this should be a dick joke and the author or whoever didn't pick up on it and didn't seem to see how obvious this was. And so I'm like, really? So for that reason, when I see this guy digging up his nose, I just immediately had this like recoil reaction. My whole self was just like, I don't think so. I wasn't sure why they were zeroing in on it so much either, because they focus on his face. And it took me way too long to put together the fact that when he flicks it, that's the explosion. Like the first time he does it, I didn't get it. I didn't understand what was meant to have been happening. And I guess I sort of understand if you are going to make a bomb fruit, which is what he has eaten, the two of them, him and Valentine, thank you, Florian, they have each eaten a devil fruit. So he's eaten the bomb fruit and she has eaten the pound fruit? Kilo fruit? Is it kilo? If you're going to have somebody eat a bomb fruit, and the whole conceit with a devil fruit is that their powers must come from their body somehow, I guess there's not a lot of alternative to a bomb fruit other than making parts of their body be bombs. And what are you going to be able to make accessible for them to toss that would explode that they aren't going to miss? You can't have somebody like just cutting pieces of their fingers off and tossing them at people. Like, that doesn't work. The only alternative that I could think of is like, you know, your hair or fingernails or something. And hair doesn't have any weight to it. So when it's like trying to throw that wouldn't really work. And it would also just, I feel like it would look weird. So when it comes right down to it, I guess I kind of see that boogers are low-key your only option. Florian says spit would also work, but that maybe is worse. I don't know. Actually, now that you say spit, that didn't really occur to me. I think that could work, though. The thing is, if you have somebody who ate like a fire fruit or a acid fruit, or, you know, I'm just spitballing. I didn't mean that, but I stand by it. I'm just spitballing here. You want to reserve that kind of power for something like that, where, you know, that they spit acid or they spit fire or lava or something. Like, I could see that idea being floated and then being like, I feel like that would work better for this other thing later down the line. And Gabriella says distance, though, which is what I was also going to argue, Gabriella, except for the fact that, like, when you flick a booger, how far does that shit actually go? Let's be honest. You could probably do, like, maybe 6 feet. I mean, it all depends, of course, but I mean, I don't feel like I could spit that much more. I feel like I could do like 5 feet spitting. I don't know. I don't feel like, she says you can probably reach farther with a booger than spit. Yeah, I don't like, he can reach so far with his boogers that I feel like if we're going to go with that, then the animators can just make him be able to go as far as he needs to with spit too. I don't think that in the end they're going to care about that. I feel like once you eat a devil fruit, whatever power you're granted is also your body like changes in order to make it the most advantageous that it could be. So if your power requires spitting, you're going to now be able to spit like 30 feet. You know, that just feels like how this sort of works. Let's see. Florian says, and a booger is kind of bomb-shaped. I love this convo. I love One Piece. Yeah, and, like, this is the sort of thing that I have to imagine that Oda, like, sits down and talks to himself about and tries to decide how things are going to work and how things aren't going to work. And the thing that I'm interested in regarding this show is watching how much this might change over time, because just we're in such early days now and just so many years go by that are they going to revise the rules? Are they going to, like, sort of retcon rules that aren't specifically in place now, but we'll find out that they were the whole time and they sort of work, or maybe don't? If you, like, really begin to pick things apart, maybe you realize, like, that was definitely like a retcon that doesn't really fit here and there. I don't know. I'm just really, like, interested overall in the development of some of the groundwork that he's laid here. Bernadette, I just love how you're discussing the logistics of boogers. Listen, it's necessary. This guy, Mr. Five, like, I don't know what to think of this dude. Because they sort of make him look cool otherwise, but then give him this incredibly, like, weirdo lame power. I mean, not, like, actually lame. Like, in practice, it's badass, but, like, it's not. And I can't decide if that's just an accident or if it's on purpose. I can't decide if Oda specifically was like, I'm going to design somebody who kind of looks rad. And then it turns out that what they can do is gross and weird. But anyway, so, and you know what, while we're on this topic, let's just talk about Valentine's power, because I think, yeah, Florian says kilo fruit. She can change her weight. So she can make herself so light that she can be carried by the wind, which is why she always has a umbrella with her so that she can get lifted up into the air. And in some ways, that is a pretty cool power. Like, let's say you're just trying to hold a door closed for some friends to escape while people try and pound their way in. You can just stand in front of the door and make yourself weigh 2,000 pounds and they never get through the door. Or, you know, if you need to escape an island and you would sink on a particular, like, piece of driftwood or something, but you make yourself light enough that the driftwood can hold you, or you just float above the water, I guess. And what she's doing here, she's, like, literally flying. The only thing is how to control that. And I wonder if there's anybody who, like, eventually has some ability to mess with the wind or weather, because I feel like they would have the advantage on her pretty hard. She would have to weigh herself down more in order to not be completely buffeted around, and that would sort of countermand the advantage that she has to begin with. And also, she has... Miss Monday goes down. I was really sad. I was hoping to see more from her. I am assuming she's dead. Again, it's really hard to know if I'm meant to assume that, but I think so, based on, like, how Valentine just completely comes down like an avalanche on her. And it works because Miss Monday is just laying there unconscious. But later on, we see what happens with Zorro, because Valentine is coming to... She is plummeting to earth above his head, and she's really mad initially because he's ignoring her. And she yells at him something about, like, don't ignore me, and is just, you know, she's used to her drama being, like, anticipated. And then, as he's in the midst of talking to Luffy, he just steps aside, and she just crashes into the street. And honestly, I lived for that moment, you guys. What I love about these devil fruit powers is seeing the various ways in which they do not work out. Like, the ways in which they can go wrong. Buggy, he gets all of his limbs get like separated from one another, and his body is like taken hostage, essentially. Genius. We have Luffy more than once, his like limbs getting tangled up in things, which is amazing. So yeah, this is what I'm here for. And I'm really curious about this bomb fruit guy. If he is going to be like, if his whole body is a bomb, if Kilo Girl were to land really hard on him, would he blow up? I'm just asking questions here, I'm just curious how much his body is a bomb. Like, how hard are we committing to that? Because I want to know what the downside is, other than obviously having to use boogers as weapons, which I think is a pretty significant downside. Anyway, okay. So we have this moment here where Cogsworth, who is still alive, he begs Zorro to help him save the princess. And what's the name of their country? Alabasta? It's like Alabaster almost. And Zorro initially is just like, go fuck yourself, dude. You think I'm going to help you after you just like tried to take me down and turn me in and all of this stuff? And then here comes Nami. Y'all, I really enjoy her a lot. She just brings so much to this show. So Nami steps in and she's like, we could do that for a small fee. And by small, I mean 100 million. Which I guess is like, while it's a lot, it's not as much as it sounds like to us. Because reminder, when Zorro had 50,000 berries, that was considered nothing. And when Zorro is like, we're not doing that, she's like, I mean, I'm not, but you are. And he gets real agitated and is like, what do you mean? And she's like, you still owe me for the money I lent you. And he's like, the money that I gave back the same day? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, you agreed to a 300% interest rate. And he's like, I gave it back the same day. I shouldn't even be like paying interest. What do you mean? And she's like, I mean, I said what I said. I never told you that it was day-to-day interest. It's essentially her vibe. She's just like, it started the hour I gave you the money. And considering the rate, you owe me still. And when he starts to balk, she's like, are you going to keep even one little promise? And basically like calls all of his honor into question. And he gets understandably very angry. Now, is this reasonable or fair? In no way. But that's not what Nami's here for. Nami is here to make ridiculous demands and move things along in a certain direction. And I am 100% here for it. And I love how angry he gets over it. I love that she like can hold this over his head. I love that if she can hold this over his head, there's a possibility later on of him winding up being in a position again where he has to borrow money from her, but knows what it's going to cost in the end, because now he has a better idea of how she like functions. Just everything about how this all works for me is it's so funny. I really, there's something so refreshing about the one female character not being like just the good girl, like golden hearted sort of, what's the word I want? The voice of reason, or like the conscience of the crew. 'Cause that can happen a lot, women, especially when we're sort of tokenized, we wind up being the like moral compass in the group of dudes who are all really out of control, reckless, impulsive, whatever. And while she does wind up stepping in between Zorro and Luffy and bashes their heads together, that does not feel like it's her main role. She's still out here doing what she does as a person, you know? And it's just really nice because it gets really boring. I mean, even in like Marvel movies and stuff, when you look at the Guardians of the Galaxy and Gamora just always winds up being just like the serious one who is focused on the mission, doesn't joke around, and is like, you know, constantly like, that's not the right thing to do, etc., etc. So anyway, she forces him into this thing, and we see the princess attempt to escape on the back of her duck bird. It's not a duck because it doesn't have webbed feet, but it's not a chicken because he's got a like big flat bill instead of a regular like pointed chicken's beak. This little guy is behaving much better than he did last episode. Last episode, he was just not helpful. And this episode, he seems to be a lot more on his shit. So I appreciate him. And she thinks that she's out, and Five blows up like the street in front of her so that she can't keep running down that way. Karoo, that's his name. I don't know if she ever calls him, like, says what kind of bird he's meant to be, or if we even need to know. But yeah, this is a good time. And so yeah, this is when Miss Monday steps in and tries to buy her some time, but she winds up going down. And eventually Zorro winds up interrupting. And because the princess is not yet on the same page, he doesn't realize that, or she doesn't realize that Zorro is on her side now. So as soon as he shows up, she starts to like target him again, and she's got this thing. And guys, I don't remember if we actually saw how this worked last episode and I missed it, but she has like a ring on her finger that she'll take off and slide a chain or a thread through or something and whip it around. I'm assuming that it's like a blade of some kind, or maybe it's just the weight of it is meant to be. But regardless, I didn't remember seeing this at any point. And when she does it the first time, it was kind of like, what's going on? And then she tries to do it with Zorro too, and he has to stop her because she is going to need his help, as he eventually manages to get her to believe, because at first she's just like, why would you do that? Meanwhile, Cogsworth is explaining to Nami about how the Baroque crew is like a secret crime syndicate. Its main work is espionage, assassination, larceny, and bounty hunting. And he says it's at their boss's command. He's the only one who knows their names. And Nami is like, why would they listen to somebody who they don't even know? And he says Baroque Works' ultimate objective is the founding of an ideal nation. Everyone who does well within the company will be guaranteed a high social standing within the ideal nation that the boss will be creating before long. And we find out a little bit later what's going on here. So the guy who's codenamed Mr. Zero is it alligator? It's crocodile. Is it crocodile? I hope it's crocodile. That just sounds more intimidating to me than alligator does. Like gator, that could be intimidating, but like alligator, I don't know. That doesn't really have the same ring. I feel like crocodile is more intimidating sounding. But they, like, what we find out eventually is that Alabasta is in the midst of like a civil war, and that the people who are rebelling are being manipulated by all of the Baroque company or the Baroque crew. And they are pretending that it's like, we're trying to improve conditions for you guys and fight for rights, etc. But what they actually want to do is simply take over. And they don't know exactly, or they didn't know how this crew was tied into the influencing of the people and in Alabasta. And so she wound up going undercover with her bodyguard in order to infiltrate and find out who was actually pulling the strings of the whole thing. So eventually when she's talking to everybody and she gets to the part where she's like, we had to figure out who was pulling the strings. Luffy asks, who was it? And she does this thing that was so funny to me, guys. No, don't ask me. Ask me anything except that, crocodile. And I was like, bitch, you are bad at this. What are you doing? And I love it. Everybody's immediate reaction is, wow, you just said it. Okay, sure. Correct reaction. You're all correct. But first, before we get there, we have to talk about Luffy and Zorro fighting. So, on the one hand, at first I hated this. Not just because I don't want to see infighting amongst my guys, but because Luffy needing to turn this corner and be completely unreasonable this is a really frustrating trope, y'all, where, and hear me out, because I don't actually feel this way in the end about this, but this is where I was coming from initially. There are so many poorly written TV shows. I'm going to focus on TV shows when I say this. I know that this happens in books also, but I tend to read a lot less fluff book lit. What do you want to call it? Just trashy novels, I guess. I read a lot less of that than I watch trashy bad TV. So I am certain that this is in books as well, but I just don't come across it quite as much. And I tend to, when I do come across it, just stop reading. Whereas with TV, I'll keep plowing through because I just want something on in the background while I'm doing stuff. And books, I have to make a conscious effort to keep reading. So that is something I'll be a little bit more discerning with and just be like, forget it and stop reading. So this is such a thing where the writers decide that they need their character to do something that is going to slow down the progression of the plot a little bit, because otherwise they're not going to be able to get a full 20 episodes out of this already way over long season. So what they do is come up with a wild reason that this character is going to get angry and mistrustful, maybe begin to do things that are kind of out of character, and it's all put down to them being irrational at this point. Maybe it's jealousy. A lot of the time when they decide to introduce romances, it's because they also want to be able to create a irrational character behavior that are fueled by jealousy a lot of the time, or fueled by love, but jealousy tends to be a lot more interesting to watch, frankly. So this kind of thing is done a lot. And with Luffy, the thing that sort of saved it is how truly ridiculous it is. If they tried any harder to make this feel serious, I would not be on board. But because they just leaned completely into the absurdity of it, they have him just talking. Basically, what it comes down to is that if you feed Luffy, he doesn't see how you can possibly be a bad guy. That's how simple it is for him. He's like, how could they be our enemies? They gave us lots of yummy food. He's got the energy in this of a golden retriever or a yellow lab. I'm going to say a yellow lab. Golden retrievers have a kind of dignity about them. Yellow labs don't really have that. So I'm going to say yellow lab for Luffy. I'm going to have to assign a dog to each character eventually, aren't I? I'm going to have to do that. But yeah, we're going with that. So basically, if you give him a treat, then he considers you a friend forever. And also he will be looking for a treat from you every time he sees you and asking where the treats are. And the whole, like, the what do you call them? Filler episodes with the millennial dragons. And there's like the little girl who tries to cook in order to show her gratitude. And Luffy's literally the only one who can eat the food because it's so terrible. And he doesn't understand why everybody has a problem with it. And is even willing to deal with the old man's like telling of their whole history on the island in order to get some pork buns. Yeah, you know what? We're going to do Yellow Lab. So because they have his like his behavior be so patently ridiculous, and it's even patently ridiculous to Zorro. So there's no danger of it feeling like they're trying to explain away his behavior and pretend that there's understandable reasons he'd be acting this way. They are fully relying on how very stupid this is. I was 100% into it. I really, really liked it. I just found this so funny. And at one point Zorro asks him straight up, like, are you trying to kill me? And he just says, yes, die. And I was like, you know what? If they could have had him say no or not answer the question. But the fact that he just says, yes, die, I don't know why, but it just took it so far over the edge that it came back around and was good. And, you know, I don't really need to explain, but I will. The reason that he is mad at Zorro is that he wakes up in the party area. All these people have been knocked out. And, well, he doesn't wake up in the party area. He goes back because he wakes up and goes to pee and turns around and sees like the whole alley behind him filled with bodies, or like the main street, and then goes back to the party area and is like, who did this? And they said, your friend Zorro. And they don't, it's kind of interesting that even here, this dude's like on the ground, perhaps fatally injured, at the very least, like badly injured. And he's still not showing his hand. He's still not saying to Luffy, like, you bastards, we were trying to catch you and he made trouble for us. No. He's still going like, oh, I can't believe, where am I? What happened? Your friend, for no reason at all. He came after us. There's no explaining it. And I was like, you know what? That's pretty good commitment to this bit, man. Like, it worked. If they had been allowed to carry on, Luffy may have taken out your enemy for you. Pretty good deal you almost had going on there. But yeah, eventually Nami steps in and is just like, are you guys fucking kidding me? And bashes their heads together. And I really enjoy her holding both of them and each of them trying to like continue fighting the other. I think Zorro sort of aims a very half-hearted punch at Luffy's head, and then Luffy like kicks Zorro, but it's this like slow, tired kick where it's more just like him pressing his foot against Zorro's face. It was all really just it was funny. And there's even a moment where like Five and Valentine try to keep up the fight between the two of them, and they turn around at the same time, and both Zorro and Luffy are just like, can you stop being so annoying? You're interrupting our fight. And they say it in unison, and then completely like deck both of these people and send them fucking flying. Not because they should, but because they are intent on their fight that they're in the moment, and they don't need to be playing around with this whole other thing right now. And I was just delighted. I felt like that was a really good way to play it. So yeah, Nami interrupts. As far as she's concerned, they have saved this princess, but she thinks like, if you want more help, we need to do this contract. If you're a princess, I don't see why you can't pay this money. 1 billion berries shouldn't be too much. And this is when Vivi's like, have you heard about Alabasta? And she says it's a peaceful kingdom known as a great civilization and nation. Well, it used to be. It's in the middle of a civil war. So this is when we get the whole story about what's going on and what they're doing here. And eventually, Cogsworth shows up. And I should mention, I forgot about this. Cogsworth shows up right after this thing happens. So she just says the name Crocodile. And as they're all sitting there like, why did you just say this out loud? We see the vulture and the otter. Thank you to whomever it was that told me it was an otter last episode. I can't believe it took me so long. These two evidently spies sitting up on the roof watching. And immediately Nami seems to be aware that the fact that these two heard her say it and then flew off, that this is bad fucking news. So what Nami says is, I am going to fucking get out of here because the dude that she's talking about does not know what I look like. So I appreciate all you guys and I like you, but I'm not interested in messing around with somebody that's that powerful. I am gonna bail. And then she turns the corner. And this is, guys, this is like one of the best jokes. She turns the corner and the otter is there and has just finished drawing a full like police sketch of each of them. It's so... This otter in the white and purple polka dot onesie and sunglasses with the fucking dead serious expression on his face, showing her the portraits of her and Zorro and Luffy. I cannot overstate how fucking funny I find this. This is so bizarre and so different in tone from so much of the rest of the show. And the gag that he can draw, I mean, earlier when he's like lighting a stick of dynamite, he's doing it with like an oyster shell type thing, which is meant to imitate the way that an actual otter busts open oysters, which makes it even more annoying that I didn't realize right away. So that felt more like, okay, an animal is doing that. But then you see him just standing in the street holding a pad and a pen and drawing this out. And I just like, I don't know. It just took it to another place for me. This fucking killed me. And I love Nami says, wow, that's so good. She isn't even like, what the fuck, dude, until a second later. First, she's just impressed, which that's fair. I don't know, guys, this just got me so bad. Because, yeah, how else would you react? If you saw an actual otter drawing, and then the otter turns that paper to you, and it's like a fucking photorealistic interpretation of your face, you would also just be like, whoa, that's amazing. Like, I love this so much. Anyway, okay. So yeah, she's super mad because this is just, there's no getting out of this at this point. Zorro asks also, where was she planning on running off to anyway? And that's a very valid question. I assume she was just going to take their ship because she's done it before, and I don't see why she wouldn't just do it again. But I don't know, I don't know how much of her heart has changed since the whole thing with Arlong got, resolved. Who knows? So this is when Luffy is like, oh, so I guess that we're all on the Baroque Works hit list. That's actually pretty exciting for some reason. This dude's a warlord? That sounds badass. And I love that after he says this, the camera cuts to Nami curled up, just like, oh man, while Vivi tries to be like, I have 500,000 berries saved up if I can give you that. This whole thing is very funny. So, this is when Cogsworth shows up. And he has put together a kind of version of Vivi's outfit. And he has put his weird hair into a giant ponytail. I enjoy this ponytail, honestly. It's a good look for him. He should keep this. I find it superior. And what he tells them is, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make doubles of you guys. We're going to have some decoys. And I am going to take off and distract them while you guys bring her back home. And this actually isn't like a terrible idea, except for the fact that he says, you guys go home the regular way. Which I was like, it feels like you should be the one that seems to be going home the regular way. But, well, let's see. While the pursuers are busy with me, all of you will head to Alabasta via the normal route. Oh, okay. So what he's saying, because we find out later that they have the eternal log, right? And I think what he's saying here is like, I will use the eternal log to head straight to Alabasta, and you guys will use the regular log to like tack your way over, essentially, from island to island, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah. This is when Nami tries to be like, who said we would take the princess? We aren't in agreement. And Luffy's like, take her where? Oh, yeah, we'll do that. That's no big deal. And of course, again, Nami is just like, what? You're just agreeing immediately? Crocodile is going to come after us, you know. And yeah, apparently Crocodile is one of those like legally recognized pirates, which was actually a thing. The bounty he used to have on his head was 80 million berries. 4 times Arlong's bounty. Back before he was legalized. And Luffy just says, this sounds like fun. Definitely gonna do it. So we go down to the shore. And Cogsworth bids her goodbye. He takes the, eternal pose. Which is such a weird, what a weird thing. But he gets on the ship. He's heading out. It's a whole like tearful farewell. She's talking about how reliable he is, Vivi. And all of a sudden, the ship explodes. And I don't understand how this happened. I don't know if it's supposed to be that there was like a timed explosive on the ship and we just didn't know it was there, or if it's supposed to be that somebody attacked from afar. But because it's like it's like a nuclear blast. I mean, the way that this is drawn is so intense, you know? It's not a nuclear blast because they'd all be dead, but you know what I'm saying. It just feels really like there had to be some planning behind this, and they all wind up blaming this woman who turns up later. And as far as I can tell, I don't remember if she actually takes responsibility for his death. If she officially acknowledges, yeah, it was me who did it. But at this point, they're realizing, okay, these guys are already after us, so we need to get the fuck on our ship and get out of here. And Luffy goes and has to grab Sanji and Usopp, and he grabs Usopp by the nose, which is just rude. Grabs Usopp by the nose and Sanji by the foot, which I guess he's just picking each of their like most distinctive feature, and drags them all the way to the ship. These two dudes don't understand what's going on, so they're like really mad that they're being taken away from this awesome island with a bunch of hot girls and food. And they get on the ship. They're talking about how many people are in Baroque works, that there's like maybe 2,000. There are several town-like bases nearby. Nami is wondering, like, are they going to send everybody? Would they even do that? And they're in the midst of this when this woman from up on like the deck, be careful. Let's see. Oh yeah. Nami says, leave the navigation to me. When somebody says, be careful not to crash the ship into the rocks. And then she's like, wait, was that you, Luffy? And she turns around and there's this woman. She is wearing a purple cowboy hat with like orange and white braided trim. And she's got knee-high purple boots and like a little bustier belly shirt that is like indecent pretty much, and tiny little shorts. Basically, she looks like she's about to go to Coachella if she were wearing like a flower crown instead of that cowboy hat. Probably this would work really well. And of course, Sanji immediately is like, but she's so beautiful. And I was like, oh my God. And again, when Vivi says, you're the one who killed Cogsworth, she's like, doesn't say anything. She doesn't say that she did or admit it. And I was kind of interested in that. Like, for me, that sort of points to that maybe she didn't. But I don't really know how much credit to give this lady. And she sort of tries to say that as well. When they're like talking, she says something about how I was actually watching you and was sort of intrigued and decided to help out a little bit. So I am going to give you a pose that will help you bypass the next island coming up, called Little Garden. And Luffy, who is very enraged that this woman has decided to trespass upon his property, takes the pose from Nami's hand and crushes it. And then says, nobody else gets to decide where this ship goes. And honestly, Nami screaming at him was just about exactly my vibe. I was so irritated with him, y'all. Disgusted. Do you understand? So mad. I was startled at how angry I got over this. It was unreasonable. I should not have been this angry, but I truly was just like, you know what, Luffy? I'm about to punt you into the ocean. Between this and starting this fight with Zorro, I've about had it. All right? I'm just sick of it. Just, you know, like, no. I'm out. And this lady, it's not even really certain that she's being honest with them about where this pose would have led them, her intentions on any of this. Also, it's supposed to be that she's like the girlfriend of Crocodile, I think. And this exit that she makes, she gets onto the back of this giant sea turtle that is also wearing a cowboy hat. It's kind of amazing. I want to see this turtle again. I really like this whole thing. And also I forgot to mention that she's the one who told the big bad Crocodile that Vivi had like discovered his identity. So she's the one who set this whole thing into motion, you know? Let's see. Ryan says, would you have trusted this random woman, though? No. But that says I still wouldn't have, like, taken a thing and just broken it. He doesn't break it because he doesn't trust her. He breaks it because he's having a tantrum because she's trying to boss him around, which is a very different energy. And I just don't ever think that, like, completely disregarding an avenue of action is a good idea. Because once it's broken, there's no getting it back. And what if you talked it over and decided to but he doesn't do that. He doesn't allow anybody else's input in any way. And, you know, if maybe they would all have decided together to not listen to her, but it's just not like the motivation behind breaking it the way that he did felt very childish to me, which is Luffy. I mean, he's extremely childish. That's like his whole thing. So yeah, he just, I find this very irritating sometimes. And I really sympathize with Nami's irritation. But anyway, so yeah, she makes her exit onto the back of this awesome turtle, and all of them are really uncertain what to make of her in general. The place that she says the pose she's giving them brings them to is Not at All Island, which is a wild name. And it's Zorro who's initially like, this is a trap, isn't it? And she just says, is it? And I really, really enjoy this vibe that she's going to come down and do her thing, but she's not going to try too hard to convince anybody of anything. She isn't arguing her case at all. She's just like, here's what I'm doing. I'm giving you this information, or am I? Decide for yourself, and then just flits away. And there's something, for those who have read the Cradle series, I'm getting real Akura Charity energy from her. Charity is less, I am guessing that this woman is up to no good in a much more intense way than Charity was. But Charity would definitely just pop in and drop a bomb and cause chaos and then fucking just bail and sit back and watch it all unfold in front of her. And that's kind of like this lady, it just feels like she's bored, or just was a little bit surprised at how much more interesting this group was than she expected them to be. And so she's like, well, let's see what happens if I do this. Like, she's treating it sort of like an RPG. And I kind of understand, if you're like very powerful, that you might just be like, well, I don't know, dance for me. That kind of thing, you know? So anyway, Luffy is just extremely mad at her trying to tell him how to do anything. And I appreciate that everybody on the ship afterwards is just like, what do we do? Like, how do we handle this? How much of her information do we even listen to? And I love when Vivi's just like, is it even okay for me to be on this ship? Should we be doing this? And Nami gets right up in Vivi's face and is like, maybe you should have fucking thought of that before you decided to involve us in this and also say the guy's name in front of us all. Like, she's not wrong. She's not wrong. But Vivi, you know, she's got a lot on her mind. I'll try and be sympathetic to her. So then we have our very last moment, which is we see this woman. I can't remember her name, guys. Maybe we don't know her name yet, Cowboy Girl. But she is talking to her, I think to her turtle. I think she's still in the ocean at this point. But she says something like, it'll be quite a sight, little garden. And then we see this like tiger in the trees. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. And he is staring wide-eyed, and the camera pulls back, and there's this giant footprint in the ground. and the ground is like shaking as if with the impact of something enormous walking around. So that is the end of the episode. So I guess Little Garden, it's not the garden that's not little. You know what I'm trying to say? Like when you call a guy tiny when he's just very large, is that what they're trying to do? I'm guessing. Anyway, all right. I have to wrap up, but thank you guys all so much for hanging out with me. Thank you again to Bernadette for commissioning this episode. These were really fun. And I think I'll be seeing you guys again Friday with another episode. Yep, this Friday. And then I'll be taking a week off for my birthday. And then I'll come back and do a month about. And then I will be taking off 3 weeks for the wedding. So yeah, just thought I would give you guys an update on that. All right. Thank you guys again so much. See you next Friday. And until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.